Page 32, the Campbells are coming. On the previous couple of pages, they have a project page. It's their version of a quiz, I think. I'll cover that at the end of the video as best I can. On page 31, they're introducing you to major scales. Sham uses what's known as tetrachords for their scales. John Thompson does too. This is how I first learned scales when I was a little kid, and it thoroughly messed me up. Thoroughly. So I'm not a big fan of tetrachords, but the book presents them. I'll explain them. Tetra means four. So a tetrachord is a four-note chord. And what it is you just don't use the thumbs. You're just using the fingers. And they show you one where you're starting out on an F, and you have a B flat, and then the right hand does the rest. You get all the notes in the scale, a regular scale, by doing this, because there's 8 notes to an octave. You're just filling in the rest of them. For F major, you have that. For G major, here. And for C major, it's all the white keys. It's basically what they're doing. The idea is the pattern is the same. The half step, look at the top, the half step is the last 2 notes. Here and here. So it's the last 2 notes in each 4. So it's a whole step, and then a whole step, and then a half step. And that's the pattern, and you can use that pattern on tetrachords for any scale. Any major scale, I should say. So they're all the same. So in C major, the half step is the top 2 and the top 2 here. And it works that way in all of them. That's basically all I have to do. I don't encourage tetrachords. I would prefer you go to my scale videos for these chords, or for these scales, the C major, G major, and F major, and follow what's in those scale videos to learn the scales. I think that's much safer than what they're doing. Now, let's talk about this Campbells thing. 6/8 time in the key of D major. Got 2 sharps. The F's and the C's are sharp, so make sure you can do the D major scale. If you're curious about the tetrachord thing, you just start on a D, and the top 2 is a half step. These are half steps, and everything else is a whole step. D major scale. I still prefer the way the scale videos do it, though. It's a little confusing the way this music is written, and there's several things in this particular piece that are confusing. And it's the way it's written, it's the way it's laid out. Let's just take it carefully. The beginning here, I'm going to kind of take both hands together because they're both kind of playing, sort of, maybe a little. Now the right hand is going to get the first 4 notes. You see the LH under the A? That doesn't apply to the A. That's why it's confusing. It doesn't apply until the G. Follow the stems. The stems going up here, when they have both hands in the same staff, you can generally follow the stems. Not always, but most of the time you can. So when the stems are on the top part, going up, we'll go ahead and use the right hand. And then the left hand for the stems going down, and you just put your thumb on the G. It's a tetrachord, sort of, except we're using the thumbs here. Now there's an 8 VA on that, so instead of here, we got to go up an octave here. And then the next measure, the LOCO, they don't need that because the dash line for the 8 VA ended. And that means you automatically come back down to the local place. But local, LOCO, means where it's written. So it's the same thing, an octave lower. And then the last measure, you're down here. Same thing. Now it's not so hard, I hope. You're just playing the same thing in 3 different octaves. And then second line, second measure, or the first ending, you're down here. You're still in octaves. Watch out. be what you think they are. And then jump to the third line. We're here. Watch the fingering in the right hand. Second finger. Rest. 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 Jump up, down. Now, they're saying second finger. I recommend you use fourth finger for that A and second finger for the next one. And they're saying thumb, cross over, third finger. It's okay, and there's other fingerings, but this is good exercise. You need to be able to do this. So, yeah, don't shy away from it. Now we get the counting in as eighth notes. 1, 2, 3 at the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the rhythm for the first line or so. And the third line down is 1, 2. That comes in on beat 6. Look at the second line, second measure. Third measure. Where the C sharps are, you know. Dotted quarter note tied to a quarter note is 5 counts. So the 6th, 8th note is the first note there in the third line. Here. So that third measure, the second line is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then, so when you start the third line, it starts on beat 6. The first note is melody. And then the melody goes to the right hand, which is what that dotted line is for. Should sound like one hand played it all. Like so. So the left hand has to go loud and then soft. Can you do that? You have to do that in a couple places, 3 places actually. So it's... Now, look at the staccatos. They're all over the place here. That A in that second full measure, third line is not staccato, but I think it should be. I think that's an error because you can't play it in legato. You have to connect them. You can't connect them because you need the A again here. So it has to be disconnected. It's got to be staccato. Next line. And then the last line, last measure here, it's okay to do that. Thumb on those. I tend to do a 1, 2, 1 because they're repeated notes. And it's a little more advanced fingering technique, but it's a good idea to get in the habit of playing different fingers on repeated notes most of the time. Not always, most of the time. This is a fairly quick little piece, and that becomes even more important on quick little pieces. So it's on those. Don't have to. You can use thumb on all of them if you want. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the roadmap, or where you go, when, what direction you're going, because this piece is really confusing at first. In my opinion, it is. On the second line, you have a first and second ending. There's no repeat sign at the end of the first ending. That means you don't repeat it, you go on. You skip any other endings there are. In this case, there's only one other ending, so that's fine. You go to the next line. They're nice, they give you a note to next line. They don't need that note. I mean, the fact that there's no repeat sign means you skip the other endings and keep going. So we're going down to the third line. The third line and the fourth line are surrounded by repeat signs. So you're going to repeat those. You're going to play them twice. And then at the end, there at the bottom, it says DC after repeat. That's what it means. So after you've repeated it, then you would DC back to the beginning. DC means go to the beginning. Play the first line again. First measure the second line. You skip the first ending. You've already done it. You're done with it, and you take the second ending, and that's where the fine is. At the bottom, on the DC after repeat, they don't need the after repeat. All they need is, really, it should be DC all fine is what that should say, because the repeat sign means you're going to repeat, and you're going to repeat before you DC. It doesn't make sense in music to DC first and then repeat, especially because after you DC, you don't play these lines again. A little bit about that last measure at the bottom. Look out. See the 8th rest in each staff in parentheses? That means one time it's used, one time it's not. When you repeat, you don't use the rest because that beat is the pickup beat to the 3rd line. So you hold 5 and you go on. But when you go back to the beginning on the DC, then you have to include the rest because there's no pickup at the beginning. Rest. So one time you're using the rest and then another time you're not. So watch out on that one. Just to make it more interesting, then at the beginning of the 3rd line down, underneath the staves, they say 2nd time 8 VA. Well, that's confusing. What's going on? Well, it means when you repeat it, because you're going to repeat the last 2 lines, the left hand and only the left hand is going to go down an octave. So instead of here, you go here. Got problems with that, but that's what they said. That's what that means when they do it that way. If they wanted you to go up an octave, they have to put it above the staff. Remember, an 8 VA above the staff, you go up. If an 8 VA is below the staff, you go down. If they wanted both hands to move, they have to put in a note, both hands, or they got to put that 8 VA on both staffs. So the way it's written here, it's only the left hand, and you go down an octave. The problem I have with that is the first note is melody. So now you're going from here. It sounds better up here. It's almost like they should have taken both hands down. Sounds a little heavy, but it's just... It's like you lose the first melody note, this. It's not melody anymore, in my opinion. It just doesn't sound like the melody starts with the right hand. But that's the way they've written it, so that's what we're going to do. Now with a bounce means, yeah, it's a fast, not a real fast piece, but you feel it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you have to work up to that speed. Now when you start, you're going slow, and you gradually speed it up to get the idea? And then second time when you've repeated it and the second line is here. Watch the fingering. That last note is D, way down there. Gotta love it, huh? Dynamic wise, you're starting out sort of loud, and you come down as you go back up to sort of loud again. Sort of loud. I would start each of those as sort of loud again, and then you're kind of soft, and then you're sort of loud. That's melody. Keep the left hand chords soft. Now a little danger with piano. I'll warn you about it because you got to listen very carefully when you play the instrument. The different ranges in a piano sound a little different and are controlled a little differently. When we're here in the middle, you get used to playing that because that's where you use the most. On the 3rd line down there, right? But when I repeat this and the left hand goes down here, the lower part of the piano tends to be louder just because the notes are down here. Therefore, you have to adjust your playing and play it even softer. Otherwise, if you play it like you did these, it sounds a lot louder. And it'll drown out the melody as it bogs it down. So you got to play it softer when you go down there. recommend even that pickup beat, when you're down here, play that soft too, because it doesn't make sense to me to have that be mellow. To have that low and be melody, no, I would play that soft. Like so, that's my opinion. It's an interpretive thing. So you have to listen very carefully and be aware of what you're doing with each hand all the time. It's like, okay. Let's try this out very slowly to double check the notes and the rhythms. I'm not going to do the dynamics. I'll give us 6 counts and let's play this together. Starting out up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Rest. 2. Rest. 2. Rest. 2. Two, repeat. Rest. 2. Rest. 2. Rest. 2. One, two, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, off. Now on page 30 they have this project page, which is another way that I guess they're saying for quiz. I want to go over that as best I can. I don't show any of the book because that would be a copyright violation. I don't have any permissions to reproduce any of these books. So I have to just describe what I'm seeing, sort of. Number one, they want the key signatures to the different things they're showing. The first thing they show is 3 sharps. What is the key for 3 sharps? The answer is A. You need to just know these. If you know the scales to these, it comes real quick. Takes a while to learn the scales. So the first one with 3 sharps is A. The second one has 1 flat. That's key of F. The third one has 4 sharps. That's the key of E. And the last one has 2 sharps, and that's the key of D. And they're all major keys. Right, we're not doing minor keys yet. Forget minor keys. Don't get ahead of me. It's just major keys. Number 2, they want you to write in the beats. It's 6/8 time. Well, you can go through that. An eighth note gets a count. If you remember that, then it falls in line pretty well. The last measure, it's got that dotted quarter note. Well, that's 3 counts. You're going to 1, 2, 3 into that. And then the dotted quarter rest, the same as a dotted quarter note, except you're quiet, it gets 3 counts. So that gets 3, 2. Number 3, play this melody in C major and transpose to D major. Well, the melody is here. So you're in this position for C major. So if I transpose it to D major, they say play this melody in C major. It's written in C major. If I transpose it to D major, I'm just going to use the same fingers but in D major. And D major has an F sharp, so it's here. So it's here. That's transposing it to D major. I could put it in any major key just using the same fingers and including whatever black notes I need for that key. That's the way it works. Number 4, play this melody in E major and change it to E minor. Have we had minors yet? I don't recall them talking about minors. E minor, you're here for E major. You have 4 sharps. It's a common time. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I change it to E minor, I'm going to stay here, but the key signature has to change to what E minor is, which is 1 sharp. So rather than a G sharp, it's going to be a G natural. So I'm going to play the same thing again, except that all the G's are going to be G natural. That's E minor. Number 5, in 6/8 time, there are 2 natural accents in each measure. Well, there can be. Okay. Mark these accents. The first measure has been done for you, and the first measure is a dotted quarter note, followed by a quarter note and an 8th note. So they put in an accent on the first beat of a measure, and you can go through and just put an accent on the first beat of each measure. First one's done. And then the other accent goes on the 4th beat of the measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have to count across on each of these other measures and figure out where the 4th beat is. Well, in the second measure, the 4th beat is the 4th 8th note, because they're all 8th notes. In the next measure, the 4th beat is the 2nd quarter note, because it's a quarter note, 8th note, quarter note, 8th note. In the last measure, the 4th beat is the dotted quarter note. So that's it. Just put in the accents. Number 6, the sign SFZ means to play with an accent. I don't know the words exactly. You can look up in the book the way they worded it. It's just a strong accent. It's a sforzando. I call it a musical bang. Not supposed to bang in music. That's vulgar, but it's serious. It's a serious note. Number 7, in what key is the piece below? It's in 3 sharps. What key is 3 sharps? It's in A major is what it is. Add the chords called for by the Roman numerals they have Roman numerals underneath the staves. They want you to write in the notes for the chords in the bottom staff, because the bottom staff is empty. And they have Roman numerals underneath, and they have the chord names above it. I mean, just put in an A chord and a D chord. It's a 1 chord, 4 chord, 5/7 chord, and a 1 chord. That's it. That's what I do. Number 8, play Mary Had a Little Lamb, or some familiar folk song you can find by ear in these keys, D, A, and E. And this is a good practice to get into. If you Mary Had a Little Lamb, you know how that goes? I can't think of it right offhand, but it's typically some folk song for you. If you live in another country, it'd be a different folk song. But it's a melody that everybody knows. Mary had a little lamb, is that it? And then you figure it out, one hand. Is that Mary? Yeah. And then you play it in each of those keys. They want it in D, And I can put in the chords. And then the key of E, you just make sure you include all the sharps for whatever key you're in. If you know the scales, this is not too hard to do. That's how I would do it. But you can get fancy with it. You don't have to play block chords. Let's go back to C major. I could do this. I could change the Anyway, that's improvising. That's making it up as you go along. I don't do a lot of that, but have fun with it. Some people really enjoy it. And you can do it in different keys and experiment. And yeah, it's fun to do.